art is for everybody. Art is a right. Everyone should be able to indulge and engage in beauty, no matter what. Like, you shouldn't need to afford art to enjoy it. Because if we're going to decide as a country that schools aren't going to teach the history of people that look like me, then come after the art. Let's give people a reason to come after the art, if that's where it's going to go. If you're going to take away education there, we could teach on the streets. Because people need to learn. People need to learn why things are the way they are. My name is Kwadwo Adae, and I'm a visual artist and muralist, public artist, and I'm the director of the Adae Fine Art Academy, which is a independent drawing and painting school on State Street. We're at 840 State Street in New Haven, and I teach children and adults anything they want to learn with a pencil or with a brush. And I've been running that school since 2005. So I guess September will be 19 years of running that school in this town. And it only exists because I couldn't get a higher education teaching job when I got out of grad school. So I had to open up my own school and hire myself. And that was almost 20 years ago. I've done it long enough now where I've seen people take what they've learned and run with it and create their own language with it and do what they want with that language. And then some people take that knowledge and they don't do anything with it. And that's okay too. Like,
yeah,
it's, if they ever wanted to use it again, it's like riding a bike. It doesn't go away. I've got little kids that I've watched grow as people and as artists. I have Yale students that come that just want to do something besides their rigorous studies. And I know when the breaks are here because they all disappear at the same time. And then some of them come back and some of them don't. And then I have adults that have been there since I've opened that are just still honing their craft and like getting better and better at what they do. And it's amazing to watch. It's amazing to like see someone work through difficulties, push themselves out of their comfort zones to make things that are really sacred and special to them that only they could make, things that I can't make. Only they could make with what they're doing. That's a beautiful process. And then by doing that, there's a lot of energies that I have to contend with. So I do a lot of forest bathing when I can. I sit and I meditate. I put a lot of love on my cat. And it's funny, in the last 6 months, I've been really getting deep into cooking, like making a lot of, using the culinary arts to make something to just nourish me. After 10 years of making things for everybody else and having people put garbage in front of it or loving it immensely or having the verdict of it go to others, I've been like making food to just benefit like my partner and I. Just it feels selfish, but I need to learn how to do that too. So I've been like staying home and cooking and finding the same kind of joy in getting ingredients as I do in picking colors for things, which is strange. So I have to be very careful with other arts.
Yeah.
I love all art, and it's like there was a time where I danced tango, and I did it at the Yale Tango Club here for only 2 years, and I loved it so much I was traveling to New York to dance and Holyoke, Mass to dance, and dancing here. And I bought my own shoes, and I was like dancing more than I was painting. And that's what happens to me. It's like I get into other arts and I start to do it more than I paint, and then I start to freak out. And then I have to pick up the brush again. But I'm doing that right now with cooking and trying to make like fine dining gourmet meals by following like ridiculous recipes. All winter, I decided to I made soup every week for 14 weeks. And it was different every time. And really easy soups, super challenging soups. And I just was nourishing myself with that. And I found that I really liked it. So I have to get back into the brushes. Asking myself all these questions and trying to figure out like what I want to do. And how do I build more than what I've already built? Trying to figure out if I want to still be a public artist after making like 30 murals in the past 10 years.
Yeah.
Is it good for my community? Like, overwhelmingly it's yes, but like the business dealings behind it and how much has to be done in order to make them is like, it's so hard to do. It's like almost unsustainable for just one person. And I'm just one guy, right? Like, I'm really lucky that the city lets me create these works of art on its walls sometimes, but getting to that point is getting harder and harder to do. So I'm like reevaluating what I do with this magic I have. What do I do with it? You know, I've done everything I can with it up to this point, and I want to make some different choices, different boundaries. I want to like help people in a different way, and I'm not really sure how to do that. So I'm like asking myself questions, and I'm ready for the next step, whatever that is.
Yeah.
And it's I want to take control of what I do out of the hands of others, because I've gotten so many rejections. And when you propose an idea to people in the city, to people that have the funding, to the gatekeepers, when you sit down and like make a concerted effort to explain what you want to do, how you want to do it, and you're asking for the funding for it, there are people, and it's, I don't know how many people there are or what their backgrounds are, but ultimately just a bunch of people that are unrelated to you and your path can just say no. And then after that, like 2 months of working your hardest to create this cohesive thing to explain what you want to do is just gone. Just your time, your life force gets wasted.
Right.
And like, there's no compensation for that.
Right.
And my time is all I have. It's all I have. So like, it's okay to it's okay to be rejected for things. It's okay to say no's. But when the amount of no's absolutely dwarfs the yes, like absolutely like is a tidal wave to the yeses, you have to do the calculus of whether you need to keep doing it or not. Because it's your time. You're preparing all of this time, and that time is wasted as soon as you get that no.
Right.
And the no's are like rain. So much no's, so many no's, so many people that are like, no. And as an artist, you're used to the no's.
Yeah.
But like, those no's stop becoming rain after a while, and it starts to resemble a flood. And when there's a flood, you need to leave. You need to get out of that. So I'm dealing with the many no's that I've received, and feeling the not taking it personally, but like feeling the impact of all of those rejections.
Yeah.
And the city would look different if even a quarter of those no's were yeses. Right. Even if a tiny amount of those tidal waves of no's were yeses, this town would look different. Like there's an impact and a cost to those no's. So that's where I'm at with that. Yeah. With being a public artist in this community. It was 2 years ago or last year. I was doing some research work on the Amistad ship. Yeah. And it was intense. It was really intense to be at Mystic Seaport and go on this replica of a a slave ferrying ship and going to Long Wharf. And I was invited to go on the ship, like a sailing journey from Long Wharf to Captain's Cove in Bridgeport. Like, you drive that and it's maybe 18 minutes, but on the water, traveling at 2.5 knots, it's like a 6-hour journey, right?
Mm.
Just from Connecticut town to Connecticut town. And I got ill on that ship. And it wasn't like a medical thing. It was like a spiritual. I got spiritually sick being on it. Like you could feel the evil of a ship that was in business of doing the business of enslaving people. Like you could feel it. It was palpable. And it messed me up. But like what I did was I created a mural design for the rebellion in 1839, July 2nd, 1839 was at night was when the Amistad, the slaves in the Amistad that were being illegally transported rebelled against their captors, and like this enormous harrowing story. And I painted that moment in watercolor, and it was hard to do. It was like black figures overthrowing white figures. So like if you're going to make something like that as a work of art, you have to be historically accurate to a T. And because otherwise you're just creating just a violent image for the public, and that is not the intention at all. The intention is to remind people that this happened, because these institutions and that have all the power. We live in New Haven. Yale is this huge entity, and they are able to have these beautiful walls and amazing buildings and facilities for people only because they enslaved people that looked like me generations ago.
Right, and continue to.
Right, and it's the same as the same thing that Yale has done is what this country has done. And Yale and this country, Yale was founded before the country was made, right? And there's this like absolute reluctance to just admit that is what was done, and to reconcile that. And it's this exclusive thing. This country and this school are so similar in the way that they want to exclude everyone that doesn't look like them. And it's like, well, why is it like this? And when you have something that you can create that reminds people why it is that way, no one wants to see it. People are very uncomfortable seeing images of a slave past. And that is what built this country. That is what built these institutions. You couldn't acquire the amount of wealth that it would take to start this school by doing any other thing back in the 1700s except human trafficking. It's the only way to make a lot of money. Just like right now, if you want to make a ton of money, you need to be like a hedge fund manager or a lawyer or something like that. You can't do it doing retail. There's just certain things that don't make that much cash. Right. So in order for that to be true, you have to come to terms with that is what it was. And there is this like absolute denial and refusal to even just admit that history was there, to the point where they're trying to curb the learning of Black history, like trying to cover the tracks of it, not own up to it. So in the creation of this mural, where I'm showing the moment that slaves are overthrowing their captors, yes, that's provocative. Yes, that's something that we don't want to see collectively as a society, but this is our history. And our history isn't supposed to be glamorous and gorgeous. And with all I know now, I realized that all the history that I learned in school was just fan fiction. And that's
Marvel. Yeah.
It's not okay to like teach children fan fiction and make these decisions where people don't understand why things are the way they are now. So I have been rejected by Yale. I have been rejected by the Arts Council of Greater New Haven.
Mm.
These are the entities that I've been applying for funding for, because a mural, the one I want to do is, it's huge. It would be the size of a highway underpass,
Oh, okay.
right? So it's not a
Yeah.
tiny mural, but
Yeah.
I would need at least $20,000-$30,000, right?
Mhm.
But when there's will against seeing something like that,
Mm.
it's really difficult. And it's just like, it feels like I am just unable to visually tell the truth
Mhm.
of history here.
Yeah.
And I want to put this mural down on Long Wharf, because that's where the boats are. And that's where Discovering Amistad is, this nonprofit group that like helps teach the history of the rebellion and New Haven's connection to it. Because when the mutiny happened, it was off the coast of Montauk that the U.S. Navy at the time captured the boat and towed it to, I think, New London first. And then the trial, that was a national trial, happened here in New Haven. You know, John Adams, I believe, was the presiding lawyer against it. And it was historically important because that's the first time that there was a legal slave case where they had to evaluate whether chattel slavery was actually a human thing or not.
Mm.
Are these people human or not? Like, that's the historical legal significance of having to do those, having to have that litigated. So it couldn't be more relevant to tell this story here. And there are murals that exist about the Amistad, and they're done by Hale Woodruff. And he did a series of, I believe, 3 or 4 of them, recounting them, and I've studied them, and they're horrific and they're gorgeous, beautiful things. And they're currently at the University of Alabama, Talladega.
Mm.
And that's not here. That's really far from here.
Yeah.
And I feel like we should have our own, story here for people that are here. I think the relevance is really resonating here. So in my research of the mutiny to do the mural, I made sure that the moon is in the same phase as it was on the night of July 2nd, 1839.
Wow.
The moon was in Pisces, so that is the star constellation that's in the image of my sketch.
Mm.
And then for the rebellion themselves, I went to the Beinecke and I created the faces of the slaves off of the captives from when they were drawn by William H. Townsend, who was this like 17-year-old kid that sketched the Amistad captives when they were here in New Haven. And he was only like 17 at the time, 18. So it's not like pencil drawings that are of a mature artist, but I used those images for the likeness of the people fighting for their freedom in the image. So I've done as much as I could. And I also was on the ship in the first place to make sure that the sketches are historically accurate to anyone that's been on the ship.
Wow. Wow.
So I've done my research. I've done it diligently, proudly, and it took me months to create this.
Right.
And then the no was just so easy for Yale to do.
Mm.
The no was so easy for the Arts Council to do.
Mm.
So if one of those dreams could come true, it'd be to get the funding to create this as a historical record, to keep this updated. Because if we're going to decide as a country that schools aren't going to teach the history of people that look like me, then come after the art. Let's give people a reason to come after the art, if that's where it's going to go. If you're going to take away education there, we could teach on the streets, because people need to learn. People need to learn why things are the way they are. And maybe Europeans don't want to know this, or want to forget this, or want Black people to get over that. But every facet of my life is dictated by a history that has been subverted and ignored. There's this myth of this country as being an only like white Christian country, and this entire time of this country's existence, there've always been brown people here, black people here, Jewish people here, people of all faiths, all religions, all creeds, colors. And the narrative that's being pushed is that it's just all Europeans, and it was never that. And I don't know why we keep lying to ourselves.
Right.
And I think that we're gonna keep having conflicts as long as we continue to make it okay to lie to ourselves and everyone that lives here.
Right.
And everyone that comes here.
Yeah.
And we demonize people that want to come here, ignoring the fact that we've destabilized their countries and have for hundreds of years.
Mm-hmm.
So if they can't find work in where they're from, because the CIA took out their leaders long ago in a covert operation, and they want to have a better life for their family, like, all it takes is a little bit of empathy and a little bit of history. And it's a lot easier to see why, but our policies don't reflect that.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't fix these huge problems by myself as an artist, but what I can do is tell the story. And I can tell that story visually if I'm allowed to. This mural wouldn't make sense in Detroit,
right,
or San Francisco.
Right.
But here, this is where it happened. It happened in Long Island Sound, which is right there. So that's one dream, is to just be able to speak freely here. Yeah, that's been taken up the last year and a half. And the rest of it is just surviving as an artist in a town where there's not really a lot of arts infrastructure for artists here. We've watched a lot of our arts institutions fall.
I didn't know about that.
Yeah, where the Pride Center is now used to be art space for 20 years, where people could go and see exhibitions. Right, that's where artists could go. But the problem was, art space was always drawing people from New York City, from Brooklyn, from all elsewhere. It was not a local community space. So even our one space that wasn't for us is gone. A lot of the institutions that were in this town have been heavily exploitative to artists, where money was made, but like in return, people's careers nothing was done to help people that were trying to be artists here. So we're in a little bit of an arts desert now, but very slowly and very methodically, institutions are going to be popping up that are going to be grassroots, that are being made, because you can't keep it down for too long. It's like, if you want a strong surface, if you want to make concrete, if you want it to be like solid like concrete, there's always going to be cracks that show after time. Yeah. And we are those cracks.
Yeah, the dandelions.
Yeah. We're those cracks that the plants can go through. We're those cracks in the foundation. And you will always have those cracks. You will always have that. You will always do that. We'll always find a way to get through things that we're not meant to get through.
If you didn't have to get through concrete, what world would you want to live in or want to create?
Wow. I've never actually thought about what that could be like. Yeah. Because it's not a reality for me. So yeah. But I guess it would be like if you're. Sometimes I look at movies. I look at those movies that are made about, like, what's that movie with it's like Jennifer Aniston and a dog. The dog dies at the end, or it's from the 90s. Yeah. I'm just thinking, like, someone sat down and was like, I'm gonna make a movie about a dog and have Jennifer Aniston in it. It's just like, wow, it must be nice to think of something that's so you just have this idea to make a movie about a dog, and you're gonna do it, and you're gonna get Jennifer Aniston to star in it, and it's gonna have like a puppy. The puppy is the star of the show, And my work has been so deeply rooted in social justice and telling truth and fighting oppression that it would never occur to me to just make a movie about a dog and get some Hollywood star to be in it. So I guess that's must be what it would be like to not have to use your work to fight for something.
Mm-hmm.
I think then you have movies about dogs, or all those movies that really don't need to be made, except just for profit and fun, I guess. But I don't know what I would do. I haven't even thought about it. I have a lot of different bodies of work as a painter and as a muralist. I have like abstracts that were a lot of fun because it was just kind of color poetry, and I have a whole series of just flowers and a whole series of just portraits of people. Like really just sitting down and studying the beauty of people is fun. Observationally seeing what how a rose unfolds over 6 days in the studio under the same light conditions. Like, I guess I do that, and that has no like social justice undertones to it. But the last mural that I made was in Fairhaven of a bouquet of flowers, and that was for mental health, and that was funded by Yale PRCH, the Program for Recovery and Community Health, and the wall was really large, and it took a long time to create. I lost some days because the Amistad made me spiritually sick.
Yeah, you.
And I was in the hospital for it. Yeah. And I lost about 2, maybe 3 weeks on that wall. So I finished it in November of last year. The flower mural is this bright. It's on Blatchley and Grand, and it's on the side of Hancock Pharmacy. And I'm trying to get a tree planted there with Urban Resources Initiative, because I work with them to plant trees whenever I can to do an outdoor mural. But the thing that irks me about that project, and like I'm very happy with the execution of it. We had a lot of volunteers prime the wall. I was able to get some volunteers to help me paint it. All the stuff that was on the ground, because I can't have volunteers on ladders, just for liability reasons. But what irks me about that project still is that we have this beautiful work of public art. There's a plaque on it describing the benefits to mental health, trying to destigmatize mental health, thanking all the people that like participated in the creation of this piece, because it was really a community effort. And on the left side of this mural, which is 50 feet wide, it's 12 feet tall, 50 feet wide, are dumpsters. They put their dumpsters in front of it. So when you drive by it, there's always garbage in front of it. And there's something that is so wrong about having garbage in front of flowers. Like in your house, you never have trash in front of your flowers as a centerpiece. You just don't do it. You don't you clean that up. You don't put Twinkie wrappers in front of a bouquet of flowers. So it's like a thing that I never see, but there's always full dumpsters, and then sometimes there's trash after it gets picked up. And it's just like, visually you're fighting this scene where you've got these flowers that are there for you, and flowers that smell sweet, flowers that are colorful, flowers that are beautiful. And then you have the ugliest thing possible next to it, and in front of it, where it's in front of the composition. And they refuse to move them. They refuse to put them anywhere else. There's no space. So they're like, oh, well, they just need to be here. And if I knew that they were going to do that, I probably wouldn't have agreed to do it there. Yeah. But I didn't know that until after the fact. And every day when I would work, the first thing I would do is move the trash and then get to work. And this was in the summer. So I learned that garbage pickup day was Wednesday. So on Tuesdays, it was really stinky, and it was maybe 80 degrees, and I'm on a ladder, and like if the wind blew a certain way, all you could smell is like landfill, garbage, trash, and uh, it felt futile sometimes. It felt futile. So maybe they'll change that. Maybe the city has to learn how to have art for its community and its residents. But when you think of public art monuments, if you think of the Statue of Liberty, there's never trash at the base of her. There's never trash in front of things like that. And you want to make sure that you respect the things that are there for the community in that way. So I've had to like just accept that that's the way it's going to always look. And that doesn't feel great. It just doesn't feel great.
And it seems resonant with what we were speaking about in the beginning of the constant rejection and the not seeing your magic or the,
that
so much going on, Kwadwo.
Yeah. And I was like so committed to not making paintings that only rich people can afford. Like my entire career, I'm like, no, I don't. Art is for everybody. Art is a right. Everyone should be able to indulge and engage in beauty, no matter what. Like you shouldn't need to afford art to enjoy it. And everyone wants to paint. Everyone wants to create with you. Little kids and adults and people that live in the community, they want to touch it always. Everybody wants to make them. Everybody wants the public art. No one ever wants to pay for them, but everybody wants to do it. And I didn't feel comfortable having people paint in such conditions. It was like uncomfortable for me to do it. But I had boots every day, and no one messed with me. No one ever really messes with me, but there are people that were like actively drunk or on drugs walking by, and no one is a threat when I'm doing that. But you're like, you're taking the colors and you're making these flowers, and it's like, this is for everybody. This is for that drunk. Like I'm doing this for you. I don't feel threatened by anybody walking by because I'm like actively making them something. And when I don't have to, but when I remind people of that, we have a moment where we're like on this beautiful level of humanity. And it's one of my favorite parts about being a public artist is that all of the signifiers of me are gone. I'm not a black man. I'm just this person that appreciates beauty just like you do. And if you take away the painting, you take away the brush and the colors, and you take away my easel and my field easel and my canvases, and you just have me on the street, people will not come up and talk to me. But if I have a brush in my hand and I'm actively creating beauty on the streets, like people will send their little kids to come talk to me. People who would never say anything to me will stop and be like, I love what you're doing. This is beautiful. I really thank you for doing this. It's like I'm human with them just because I create. And the same people that would like clutch their purses or cross the street if they saw me at night can just be like appreciative of me on walking on this planet. Even though I'm the same guy. I'm the same guy whether I got the brush in my hand or not. But like there's this disarming quality to being on the streets and forcing beauty out of walls. Like pouring your heart out on walls and giving that to the people of your community. Because they're in your community. We share the same city. And I don't need it. I don't need it back. I don't need the thank yous. I don't need like the appreciation, but I appreciate their appreciation. I appreciate any engagement that they do. And it's the same wherever it is. So I remember painting in Spain, in Barcelona, and like you can't just sit and focus on what you're doing, because there will be all day long people coming up and talking to you. And it's like, it's beautiful. And for that reason, I try to learn as many languages as possible, because like there's an opportunity for connection here. So I'm still studying Spanish, still studying it. When I was working on the Fairhaven mural, I was surprised at how much Spanish I heard. There'd be full days of working where I would hear no English. And I'd hear little kids walking by, talking to their mom, looking at me, and they would say sweet things in Spanish. And I would like thank them in Spanish. And they're just like, "You speak Spanish?" "Yes, I speak Spanish. And thank you for your kindness. Thank you for your sweet words." And they're like, they want to know where I'm from. And then I ask where they're from. And it's, we're from Guatemala, we're from Honduras, we're from Ecuador. They're like, the Spanish speaking world is huge, right? So when I was in Spain in 2015 painting, people were coming up and speaking Spanish, French, Italian, German, English. And it was fantastic.
Yeah.
It was fantastic.
Yeah.
And we'd be calibrating on whatever language that we could both speak the best. So sometimes that was Spanish. Back then I could speak French, but I haven't been studying French anymore. I could though. I might give French another chance. But once the work of public art gets to a certain level where people can see the level of proficiency that I have, see what's coming. When I first start, it's just primer on a wall, and I'll get compliments then just because the wall's white. And I'm just like, this is primer. I'm not actually I haven't done anything yet. But once it's almost towards the end and people can see me putting the shadows in, or putting in the highlights, or matching the colors to something real, like that's when people don't know what to do, and they're in traffic at a red light watching me, and they'll start honking horns. There's a portion of the mural that's always just vehicular honking as a way to show their appreciation for what I'm doing. But for me, if you're getting beeped at, it's jarring and it's very loud, and it like shocks you, but you have to let that just wash over you after a while. You have to desensitize yourself to horns honking towards the end. And it's loud. It's a loud thing. And it's an experience that if you're a painter that paints in a studio all day, where all your conditions are clear and you've got just your work and it's just you in there, it's a totally different experience, because I've done both. And when I'm in the mood to be introverted, sure, being in my studio for hours with a bouquet of flowers is fine sometimes. But when you're out on the streets and it's like people honking and buses and people blasting reggaeton music by you, and people screaming at each other and yelling, and some of it's joyful yelling, some of it's anger, bottles breaking, like you hear it's the sound of a city. And you have to learn to embrace your surroundings with that, and also be careful, because you can get hurt out there. You're also sometimes on a ladder 20 feet up, where if you're not focused and paying attention and you fall, like that would be really bad. It'd be really, really difficult to do. But when you're out creating something that's going to take maybe 6 to 9 weeks to make, you get to see this, like, you get to see the pattern of where you are. You start to remember that every day at 4:00, these 4 guys are going to be coming from the bus, and they're going to walk this way, and you can have a little conversation with them. Or you'll remember that at this exact time, school gets out, and this group of kids is going to walk by, and none of them are going to talk to you except the one that's got this lunchbox. They'll wave, and you can see the pattern of the space repeat itself. And in that, you are a part of it.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful to be a part of a pattern where you expect to see them at a certain time, but you're also in their life for as long as you're creating that. And then once you're done, you leave the pattern, but you know that that pattern continues without you.
Wow.
It's like what it must be like to die. It must be what it's like to die when you know that the world continues to turn, and you know that people will be doing the same things that they always do, but you're just not a part of the pattern anymore. But it's beautiful to witness. It's beautiful. You really appreciate those interactions that are so small. You appreciate the punctuality of the bus and the old woman with her groceries, and the same guy that blasts the same song out of his car because it's summertime, and you expect to see that car that looks like that go by. There's nothing really that you can look at in nature that repeats itself so beautifully outside of like migrations. But if you sit and watch a river, the water just goes by, and it is repeating, and it's also not. It's different molecules. The flow has changed, but like you're still part of this constant view of it. So it turns into the punctuality of the natural world, even though it's a man-made natural world. I love that part of it. And those no's take that away too.
Right.
That's tough.
Right.
Because I don't know what I get to miss.
Yeah.
By not getting the funding to do it.
Yeah.
And New Haven is always going to be strapped for cash because Yale doesn't pay any taxes. So when you look at cities like Philadelphia that like have mural programs that they fund, when you look at other bigger cities that have more to spend on public art, it's like, oh yeah, we're probably not going to have that here. And I have 2 pending murals right now. One is for New Haven Legal. They have their 60th anniversary of doing like immigration and family and public benefit access and education work for the past 60 years here. They want to do a commemorative mural in their lobby. So I'm waiting on that to finish. And then the other one is at Ameren Field at the base of West Rock Park. The dugouts and the concession stand were vandalized by these kids that just wrote a bunch of lewd graffiti on it. So the Department of Arts, Culture, and Tourism came to me and asked if I could create a mural over there, because it's a great way to stop vandalism, is when you put like real art somewhere so people aren't putting graffiti up. But it has me doing research on the Negro Leagues. This guy, Moses Allen Jr., was born April 13th, 1896. He's a New Haven native, and we didn't have a Negro League team, so he played for 3 different New York Negro League teams, the Brooklyn Royal Giants, and there was never no American card company has ever made baseball cards that feature Negro League players. So one of the murals would be potentially a giant mural of a Negro League player, because they don't. There have been reprints, but they don't really exist. So those are the 2 that I'm waiting on now. We'll see if they get made.
Yeah. How can people support you? How can they follow you? How can they find you?
I am on Instagram. It's at Kwadwo Adae. And then my website is kwadwoadae.com. And that lists the flowers, the portraits, and the abstracts, and all the works of public art. And I have my school, which is Adae Fine Art Academy.com. And everyone is entitled to a free trial lesson. I've given away tens of thousands of dollars in free trial lessons over the 18 years that I've been running that school. But if anyone wants to learn how to draw, if they get over the fact in their mind that they can do anything that they try, and you can come to my school and I will work with you, or I will work with your kid or your niece, your nephew. We have classes on Saturdays for children, classes during the week for adults. And it's language, so it's like the more you practice any language, the better you get at it, the more fluent you are at it. And you don't need to be fully proficient in a language to communicate in it. That's what people seem to forget.
Yeah.
Like a stick figure is still a figure. A stick figure versus a Da Vinci figure is still a figure. It's still a representation of a human. You can still understand that both things are the same thing.
Yeah, and that brings me to what importance there is in public art, because that's language. Everything in our surrounding, what we can see, is speaking to us.
Yes.
Yeah.
And when you go anywhere in the world, there's public art. There's a vibe to every city visually. There's visual language in every city. And this city is no exception. And we don't have a lot of funding. We don't have like big donors or programs that like fund public art. But there are people here that are making it. It's not just me. There's lots of super talented people that are honing in their crafts to create a better looking world, a visually engaging world for the community here. And it's important.
Yeah.
It's important.
So dreams you've spoken about are creating that Amistad mural.
Yeah. That'll be hard, but
yeah. Any other dreams you'd want to talk about? Anything else?
That Amistad dream is just a reflection of reality.
Yeah.
So dreams, I want to travel more, make a point of traveling as much as possible. I would like to make some murals in some other countries, some countries where I need a translator. Right? I'd love to make a mural in Ghana, which is where my family's from. Oh, I brought you some Ghana chocolate.
Oh, Kwadwo.
Some pieces of Ghana chocolate. Chocolate's bad for dogs, right?
Yeah, but he won't eat it. He just wants to smell everything on the planet and bark at everything. Yeah.
I would love to make a mural I'd love to go back to Asia. I made a mural in India in 2015. I would love to go back to India and make another one. I would love to go to Japan. I'm really into sumo wrestling.
Yeah.
The tournament just ended, and like a rookie won the tournament for the first time in 110 years. So what I would love to do is go to Japan and make a sumo mural. I would love that so much. The dream that I hope comes true. If I could fly there with a translator and paint sumo wrestlers. Just giant sumo wrestlers in a building or something like that. I would love that. That would be a dream come true.
Hey, may it be so.
And then I want to go snorkeling again. I took my partner to Curacao for her birthday last October. And I snorkeled for the first time, and I got to really like see this underwater world that's alien to me.
Right. So alien, and the patterns there.
Yeah. And the creatures there that like just accept that you're in their space, even though you're not supposed to be there. It feels like being in New Haven.
Ooh, yeah.
It felt like home. Being somewhere where I don't feel like I belong feels like home.
Oh, Kwadwo.
Yeah.
Same, but also you are such a part of New Haven to me. So it makes me sad that you feel like it doesn't feel like home.
No, I'm always home here.
Yeah.
Here, have some chocolate.
Okay.
It's from Ghana. My parents go to Ghana all the time, and they bring back chocolate. Feel free to break a piece. It's really good. It's like a high cocoa content. Anyone that's from Ghana has like, oh, please. It's the chocolate of my people. Yeah. It only grows there, and we've been exploited for years because we don't set the prices on the world markets for the chocolate. People tell cocoa farmers what they're willing to pay for the crop, and then it gets flown out and then it's processed elsewhere in Belgium and in Europe, and then it gets shipped out everywhere, and they make the profits, but the farmers don't really make much. But little known fact, my grandfather? He was a cocoa farmer, and there was a blight one year in like the 30s, and he was able to provide almost all of the chocolate for the Cadbury company because all the other, it was a terrible year for chocolate, for cocoa. And I remember like hearing this as a kid and being like Cadbury, like the Easter Bunny chocolates. They're like, yeah, like your grandfather was like the sole supplier in the 30s when there was a blight on him. But yeah, people aren't taught our histories, so that's why it's like a passion for me to do it, because what I know about what I know, I want to share. You know, I have to. Thank you for having me.